but I've got a lot of interesting feedback from some ex-NASA astronauts that I'm planning on having a conversation with. So some good is going to come out of this for sure.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball. In today's show, we're going to be looking back at the 3 games across the NBA on Tuesday. Only 3 games, but some interesting stuff, including a couple of blowouts that do have some interesting talking points. And then we're going to preview a massive 11-game Wednesday across the league. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
A quick note that today's wardrobe for the show, and you can see that if you are watching on YouTube, is provided by the guys at In Situ. Great made-to-measure suits and jackets. You can see I've got a jacket and shirt on at the moment. That was fantastic. Taylor over at In Situ helped me out in a great way going in there, getting this made-to-measure jacket and shirt. Was done in a few weeks. You get to customize all the different things that they offer over there, and thank you to them for providing the shirt and jacket for today's show. So if you're looking for a new suit, guys, In Situ is the place for you to go. Use the code LOCKEDON50 for $50 off any purchase over $499. You do it, submit all your measurements online, or you can go into one of their showrooms. So thanks to the guys over at In Situ. Let's get into the show now proper and talk about, as we always do at this portion of the show,
Monstrous line of the night.
The monstrous line of the night is also the waiver wire line of the night.
Waiver wire line of the night.
And it is Bryn Forbes of the Phoenix Suns. No, sorry, try again. Bryn Forbes of the San Antonio Spurs. I had it in my head that anybody can put up numbers against the Phoenix Suns, because that's exactly what Bryn Forbes did in this one. 24 points, including 5 triples. He had 11 rebounds, 3 assists and 1 steal, shot the ball very well, 8 of 14 from the field and 3 of 3 from the line. Forbes has started basically, I think, actually every single game. He's still only the 177th ranked player this season, so it's not as though he is putting up these fantastic numbers. He's not this must roster guy, but when you play the Suns, you do get a pretty significant boost to your overall production, averaging 12 points this season, only 2 assists as a starting point guard, hasn't had a single block all season, only half a steal, 12 points. He just isn't a useful player outside of 3-pointers, really. So he's a threes streamer sort of a guy. And that can have some value in 12-team leagues. But prior to today's 5-triple game, he had 3 threes in his previous 5 games before that. The 5 games before that, to be fair to Forbes, were all multiple 3-pointer games. But he just doesn't do anything in any other category apart from 3. So he is your waiver wire line of the night. He is your monstrous line of the night, but he's also a guy that you shouldn't be really looking at in 12-team formats and going to add across those ones. He's more of a 16-team league player more than anything else. The deep leaguer of the night is Gerald Green of the Houston Rockets. Greeny played 21 minutes, had 13 points with 3 triples, 5 rebounds, 1 steal and 2 blocks. And with Jim Ennis going down with another hamstring injury, it does open up a little bit more of an opportunity for Green. He's averaging 19 minutes a game over the last 6. He's much like Bryn Forbes. He's a threes streamer. He doesn't do really anything else apart from that. He's not going to have some sort of gigantic role. Maybe he plays 23 or 24 minutes a night while Ennis is down. He's had stretches over the past couple of seasons with Boston, with Houston, of having some streamability for standard leagues, but I wouldn't be getting too excited here. But he's rostered in only 1% of Yahoo leagues. It needs to be higher. He needs to be taken in all 20-team leagues, and I'd probably look for the short term at least into 16-team leagues for Gerald Green with this Ennis injury, as he puts up some numbers and has to be relied upon on this very, very thin Rockets rotation.
Young gun of the night.
This is where the fun begins. It's D'Anthony Melton of the Phoenix Suns who put up a huge performance. We're going to talk more Suns later, but 33 minutes for Melton here. 17 points with 3 triples, 7 rebounds, 6 assists and 2 steals. One of the comparisons I used for Melton quite a bit, I don't know if I used it during the season or in the preseason, was DeJounte Murray in terms of his ability to get defensive numbers. He can be a better assist guy and he's a better shooter than DeJounte. He's not quite the defender or the rebounder that what Murray is. But at this point, it's really impossible to leave Melton on any waiver wire. He's rostered in 10% of Yahoo leagues. Every 14, 16, 18, 20 team league, he needs to be rostered in. And as I mentioned 3-4 days ago, I grabbed him in every 12 team league that I was in that I could. I don't know what they're going to do when Devin Booker returns, but with Melton starting to establish himself, starting to put up okay numbers, now it's nothing overly spectacular, but the last 4 games he's averaging 12, 5, and 5.5 with almost 2 steals and 1.5 threes. Sure, he's shooting 36% from the field. It's not good, and he's just outside the top 100, but his 3 starts, he's had 3 starts in a row, 12, 3, and 4, 13, 4, and 8 with 2 steals, 17, 7, and 6 with 2 steals. You can't ignore that. You have to go and add him in 12-team leagues, I believe. Now, when Booker comes back, I think that what they'll do, I think they will keep Melton in the starting lineup. We know that they're so hesitant to play Booker in his best position that they will want to put him off ball. That means either Josh Jackson or McCall Bridges will move to the bench. I imagine it will be Jackson that moves into that role, but I think that Melton will stick in the starting lineup alongside Booker, with Bridges moving up to the 3. We'll talk more about the Trevor Ariza situation when we get into that Suns game a little bit later, but I think Melton needs to be added in all leagues at this point, all 12-team leagues. And you could even consider in 10, although in 10-team leagues there probably are going to be better options. And you do have to watch for the field goal percentage. That is going to be an issue, and we just don't exactly know how Devin Booker's return is going to impact him. But I'd be absolutely taking that chance. It's all about taking the chance on significant upside. If it doesn't work out, no worries, you move on. And we added Ali Okobo a couple of weeks earlier. He looked like he was in prime position. He faltered. Melton took it, so we go with it. It's a simple just move back and forward and grab a guy, and when the upside's there, you do it. Someone like Bryn Forbes has a big game, but that doesn't mean you go and jump on him, because the upside for him to do that is not there. For Melton, it clearly is. So he is the guy that you go and grab, and you hope that it turns out. And if it doesn't, again, you move on to the next guy. So DeAnthony Melton is a guy I think you should be looking at adding in all 12-team formats and deeper. Guys, you go and follow me on Twitter, but you can also follow the Locked On Podcast Network at Locked On NBA Net. Go and do that over there. You can hear all the information across all the hosts condensed into one feed. Get all the information for your team every day in that one feed. Information right across the league as well. And we're also doing it on Instagram at Locked On NBA Net. On both those social media platforms. On Instagram, the biggest stories of the day broken down into the Instagram stories feature. You can get news right across the league. So go follow Locked On NBA Net on Twitter and on Instagram. You won't regret it. Let's move on to the last award of the day, and that is the dud of the night. It goes to Tobias Harris of the Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers were pummeled by the Raptors at home. 23 minutes for Toby, 10 points and 3 rebounds. He didn't hit a 3. He had 1 assist. He had no defensive numbers, and he was 4 of 10 from the field. So it was far from a good performance from Tobias Harris. Hence, he is the dud of the night. He will be better than this. I don't think we have too many worries about what Toby is going to do as we move forward. But the Clippers are starting to fall off at the moment. They're in the midst of a pretty tough run of games, traveling all over the country. Barely beat the Suns in overtime the other day, which is always always somewhat of a warning sign, I guess, if you struggle to get past the Phoenix Suns, who are getting basically battered and pillared every single game. I wouldn't worry too much about Harris in this game. Everyone's minutes were significantly reduced due to the blowout nature of the result against Toronto. So it was Toby putting up the not great numbers that gets him the dud of the night, but nothing, I don't think, to really worry about too much. The plus-minus GOATs, the best net rating went to Gerald Green. We referenced him earlier, plus 112.7 net rating, while the worst net rating went to Avery Bradley, who, man, he is just terrible these days. Negative 123.1 for Braddles. Really, really struggling with basically everything that he's doing on the court. He is only rostered in 9% of leagues. What a fall for a guy who was like a top 60 player 2 seasons ago to being rostered in only 9% of leagues, despite being a starter and playing 30 minutes a night. He has been absolutely atrocious this season. Injury report, Victor Oladipo is questionable. He is likely to... he's questionable. He's a 50-50 chance to return, but it looks like his return is imminent. That's going to impact the value of Bojan Bogdanovic, Darren Collison, Corey Joseph, Tyreek Evans, maybe Miles Turner, whose rebound rate is significantly higher when he is on the court without Oladipo. That's worth mentioning there as well, but it's more the impact on Collison and Bojan. I think that we're going to see a situation where Collison goes back to being a not rosterable guy, but if you can trade either Bogdanovic or Collison for any sort of top 70 player, now is the time to do it. We got news on Tristan Thompson's foot. He's out for 3 to 4 weeks. That should mean that Larry Nance starts at center, but his namesake Larry Drew is going to dick him around as much as possible. So we're going to get a boost from Jaron Blossom game, but we could see Channing Frye and Ante Zizic come in and really impact Nance. I would still be adding Nance in all 12-team leagues. And my hope would be, I don't think the hope will be realised, but my hope would be that Nance can stick in that starting centre role even when Tomo returns. Lou Williams missed today's game for the Clippers with a hamstring injury. He's going to be out for the next 2 weeks, it appears. So that does solidify guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It does give a little bit of a boost to Milos Teodosic in deeper leagues, Avery Bradley and Patrick Beverley. But today's game was clearly not a good advertisement for the performances that those guys can put up. Well, Jim Ennis suffered a hamstring injury. He's already been ruled out for Thursday. You'd imagine he'd missed a few games. It's nothing considered too serious at this point, but he's going to miss some time, boosting the value of maybe the Comet Gary Clark. But Gerald Green and Daniel House and then Brandon Knight is on track to return for the Rockets next week. So keep an eye out for that. Let's get into these games now, break them down. There are just the 3 of them, but there's still, again, quite a bit to talk about with those games. The first one of those was the Houston Rockets. They took on the Portland Trail Blazers. The Rockets win 111-103. Lillard had 34 points, but otherwise it was a relatively empty line from Dame. No steals or blocks, only 2 assists, but the scoring was nice while Yusuf Nurkic's strong season continued. And impressively with Nurk, 9 of 10 from the free throw line. He had 15 points with 10 boards. He had 2 blocks, and he has really... Now, we've seen this from Nurkic in multiple seasons about, he's worked on his free throws. The free throws continue to improve, and that it never has happened. This season, it's happened. 76% from the line over the course of the season. I feel good in saying he is not a punt free throw guy anymore. Now, we've seen like Andre Drummond, who maintained that high level last season, and now is back to an absolutely massive negative in that category, that it can drop off. But Nurkic has improved significantly in that area. The Chief.
Sometimes may be good, sometimes may be shit.
Al Farouk Aminu, am I going to have to retire this soundbite? Because he has been good for the last 2 weeks, the 56th ranked player. Now, in all seriousness, he's shooting 64% over that time, and he is not going to be able to maintain this. This is a bloke who couldn't crack 40% from the field for 2 consecutive seasons, but another double-double, 10 and 15 with 2 threes on 50% shooting. It's pretty hard to ignore Aminu at this point, but of course he's going to go through a run where he shoots 20% from the field for 2 weeks, and then you drop him. Mo Harkless did his defensive stuff, 2 blocks and a steal, but very little else there, while McCollum had a really empty 22 points, had 4 assists, also a 0-0 with some bad free throws, and he's not a top 30 guy anymore. I think that should be pretty clear to most people who may have been hoping he was going to jump back. Chrissy Paul had the Raymond Felton triple-double almost, 11, 11, and 10 with 3 steals and 1 block, and the shooting was piss poor. Only 2 of 12 from Paul. His ranking is really low at the moment on the back of some bad field goal percentage. He could be a buy low player. Jimmy Harden struggled from the line for whatever reason, 5 of 7, but ended with 29 points with 4 assists. Wasn't his best night. Well, Clint Capella fouled out in only 27 minutes. 13 and 7 with 2 steals. 1 of 5 from the line's harmful. That gave Nene extra playing time. 10 points for Nene, 21 minutes with 2 blocks. Nothing really to see there with Nene outside of your 16 or 20 team leagues, really. The Rockets did make a change. Eric Gordon started. As I posited yesterday, that would happen. It did happen. As I also posited, it wouldn't change his value. He had 14 points with 4 assists in 39 minutes. It doesn't matter if he starts. It doesn't matter if he comes off the bench. When Chris Paul and James Harden are around, Eric Gordon's value is not that for 10-team leagues. And for 12-team leagues, I'm not actually sure he is a must-roster player at this point, given the way that his form has been going. If you guys own a company or a part of a company that would like a new way to reach customers, you could be mentioned right now. Podcast listeners are 60% more likely to interact with the sponsors they hear on their podcasts. Our demographic is 98% male. You've got a lot of cash to splash around. They are higher educated than your traditional media audiences. So have your company sponsor this podcast by emailing me at redrockfantasybasketball@gmail.com. Let's go on to the second game of the day. That was a blowout. The Spurs beat the Suns 111-86. DeAndre Ayton played 31 minutes and had 12, 11, and 4 with 2 blocks. And of course, because he played 31 minutes, Rashawn Holmes played only 17. Now, Holmes rescued his value by having 3 blocks here, but only 8 points and 2 rebounds. I find it hard to consider guys must-roster players if they're going to play 17 or 18 minutes a night. And yeah, that's sort of where we're at with Holmes. Now, over the last 2 weeks, he's played 20 minutes a night, averaging 11 and 5 with 1 steal a game and 1.8 blocks, numbers which are considerably higher than anything he's done in his career. Also, shooting 67% from the field, again, a number which is considerably higher than anything he's done in his career. He would need, in my opinion, now I know many people do disagree with this, he would need, I think, Ayton to get injured or Ayton to play 27 minutes a night for him to be an absolute must roster guy. The top 70 rank over the last 2 weeks, it doesn't lie. That's not lying. That's the numbers. 11 and 5 with a steal and 1.8 blocks. But will 20 minutes sustain? Probably not. Will 1 steal and 1.8 blocks sustain? Probably not. Will 67% and 76% from the field and from the line sustain? Also, probably not, given everything he's done in his career. And when those numbers all drop off, and that 1.8 blocks and 67% are his only 2 positive fantasy categories, when they drop off, what have you got? You don't have anything all that exciting, really. Realistically, he's maybe a top 140 guy, best case scenario, in a reserve role. So, if I had to make a choice between him, D'Anthony Melton, or even another Suns player like Josh Jackson, who we're going to talk about in a second, I take those guys. I just don't see the upside for Richaun Holmes, unfortunately. TJ Warren had 23 and 6, only played 25 minutes. He's still coming back from that ankle injury. No need to play big minutes here. But let's talk about the benching of Trevor Ariza. It would appear to me that, and this is not groundbreaking news, although I did tweet that this was going to happen, that Josh Jackson was going to get this start earlier on in the day. Joshy Jackson started, back to Ariza, sorry. It does appear that when the December 15th deadline comes on the weekend, that Ariza will be gone from Phoenix. I've been saying all season, I don't think that Ariza is a 12-team league guy. I think wherever he goes, he is not going to be a 12-team league guy. I don't think he plays again for the Suns. We also had Jamal Crawford out of this game. I'm not sure he plays again. And I criticised the shit out of this in the offseason, but why sign Trevor Ariza? Why sign Jamal Crawford? Why trade for Ryan Anderson and then make him your starting power forward? Just absolute dumb shit moves. And, we're going to get an asset back for Ariza. Maybe you do. We haven't seen what you're getting back for Trevor Ariza at this point, Phoenix fans. Or the Suns, maybe they do get some back. And then if they turn that into something good, you know what? Maybe that does work. It's my approach on Football Manager, to sign all these high potential guys and you sell them off when there's not enough playing time. Maybe that's what happens. We don't know that at this point, but they definitely haven't helped the team. They haven't helped the development of the players. They have not helped one single iota. You're not going to be able to move on from Ryan Anderson. Maybe you waive him next season. The positive with that, I guess, is it brought D'Anthony Melton, so that's a benefit. But just the overvaluation from teams of veteran leadership, when most of the times the veterans don't lead for shit. There was that report of Trevor Ariza, his veteran leadership, when the players were out there getting extra shots in, he had his bags packed and he was pissing off home. He wasn't there helping these guys. What do they do? Jamal Crawford comes out, dribbles for 20 seconds and then jacks up a contested long 2. How's that helping anybody? I don't understand it. But anyway, I don't think Ariza plays for this team again. So, Josh Jackson started, and I tweeted out, add Josh Jackson, and of course, many smartasses, I wish I didn't listen to this, what a shit tweet. Yeah, you know what? Josh Jackson's shit. I've said this for 2 years. I don't think he's a good player. He takes horrible shots, and he was atrocious in this game. He was bad. 2 of 14 is bad. 7 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, and 3 steals. You still should add him, and you still should hold on to him. Because if he plays 35 minutes a night, he will bludgeon his way to decent production. The field goal percentage is going to be a disaster. Much like I said on yesterday's show, it's why I just punt that category, because it can just really throw value off from the many other categories. Right, so I still think that he should be rostered, and it is absolutely the right move to make despite how today went. I don't think he's good. I don't think I can be any clearer about my opinions on Josh Jackson as a basketballer. I don't think he's a spectacularly good fantasy player either. But if he's going to play 32 minutes a night, that is the upside play that you have to make. That's the decision you have to go with. If it doesn't work out, boo-hoo. You're going to make that decision for Josh Jackson or Bryn Forbes. Bryn Forbes kicked his absolute ass today. He was all over the place putting up huge numbers. But 25 times out of 25, I don't know why I chose 25, but I did. I take Josh Jackson to add to my team. It's a straightforward decision for me. And that's the decision that I make in all of those scenarios. Who has got that upside opportunity, or who has this random bullshit pull it out of their ass fluke game once in a blue moon, but every other game has 10 points with 1 3 and 1 assist? I know which direction I want to go. McCall Bridges played 32 minutes. Now, I think Jackson probably does move to the bench, and they go Melton, Booker, Bridges, but he's still going to play 27 or 28 in that bench. Well, now, things can change depending on what happens in this trade, but I do think that Jackson's going to have a fairly strong run of things. As for Bridges, 8 and 4 with 2 triples wasn't his best game. If I'm prioritizing Suns to add, it's Melton, Bridges, Jackson, but that Jackson-Bridges combo is neck and neck. and you could do either of them. And tomorrow I might think it's Jackson. They are 50-50. I'd have Melton ahead of both of them. And I'd have all three of them ahead of Rashawn Holmes, personally. Dragan Bender got into the game ahead of Ryan Anderson. Must be his veteran leadership. On to the Spurs. Derek White made a second consecutive start. Only 4 points on poor shooting, but the other numbers are starting to come in. 7 assists, 3 steals. If he's 4 of 8 from the field, then we're talking about 10-3-7 with 3 steals, and it's an okay looking line. Now, he hasn't been great, there's no doubt about that. He's more of a 14 or 16 team ad and just to watch in those other leagues, but I'm just watching. Davos Bertans was out due to the birth of his child. He's missed a few games now. I don't see anyone saying he's getting traded. While Dante Cunningham had 14 points with 4 triples in his return to action. And they're going to have impacts on Derek White, but they're not guys to add. Aldridge had 18 in 24 minutes. DeRozan was bad, 5 points with 9 assists in 26 minutes. But these guys didn't need to play big minutes because the Suns are terrible. Rudy Gay is a 12-team guy, 13-4-2 with 2 steals and a block. But there will be some rocky nights with Rudy Gay, no doubt about that. The last game was the Raptors beating the Clippers 123-99. Pretty big victory on the line, on the road there. Kyle Lowry, who'd been piss poor. I did mention in yesterday's show, not to toot my own horn too much, that he was a great GPP contrarian guy because everyone would be off him because he scored 1 point last game. Well, he had 21, 5, and 7 with 4 triples, a steal, and a block on 62% shooting. He is too good to continue to be that bad of a shooter, and it turned around. There was no Kawhi in this game. The fun guy was out.
I'm a fun guy.
So Freddie Van Vliet started. 29 minutes for Van Vliet. Only 5 points. He took up the Kyle Lowry role. But 6 rebounds and 14 assists. That is anomalous. He's not that high of an assist guy. He's also not that low of a scorer. But his recent production is tilting towards 12 teams. It's still more 14 in my mind. While DeLon Wright was able to reprise the role that he used so much to such great effect last season. He had 12, 4, and 3 with 2 steals. But with Kawhi around, he just doesn't get those sort of opportunities. Siakam had 13, 3, and 5. We're starting to see Siakam's production normalize at the moment from that ridiculous top 30, top 25 type of numbers he was putting up maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. The production is starting to normalize. He's still a top 50 player on the season, averaging 14.5 and 6, with his biggest fantasy category being the field goal percentage by such a significantly large amount. It's not even funny. Z score for that category, 1.79. His next highest category, steals, 0.17. That is an absolute monster. We're talking 9 times greater magnitude of impact from his field goal percentage than his next higher category. So that's it's a really big difference there with him. Ibaka had 25 and 9 with 3 blocks, massive from him, while Valanciunas had 16 and 5 in only 18 minutes. Getting it done in limited minutes again is JV. Onto the Clippers, very little to talk about, but Gortat started over Boban, but Boban still played 16 minutes and had 18 and 7. He is just a deeper league sort of a player. Gilgeous-Alexander, 7, 2, and 2. I still believe he's a must-roster guy. While Montrezl Harrell, the 3 blocks are nice, but 6 and 3. He said before the game he was dealing with a sore shoulder. He's obviously impacted by something because he has not been good of late. He's still a hold. Maybe he's a buy low, but you have to be really aware of the old free throw percentage. Great that I get a chance to mention the list manager Ty Wallace because we've barely spoken about him. 15, 4, and 6 with 2 blocks. Just always a bloke to keep in your mind because we saw last season when he gets minutes, the production's going to be awesome. So a trade goes down, multiple injuries go down. Keep an eye on the list manager. He just alerted you to his presence here. While the Rooster had 11 and 5, Danilo, Gallinari, and Milosh had 9 points in his 19 minutes. Avery Bradley, just as piss poor as it gets, he had 1 assist in 22 minutes. Not that he only had 1 assist. That's not the bad thing. He had 1 assist. No points, no threes, no rebounds, no steals, no blocks. 1 assist. Whoa, he is, as the French would say, bad. All right, that would take us away from the end of the games from which day was it? From Tuesday, and let's transition into talking some DFS for Wednesday. We'll go with the perfect lineup across there on DraftKings. It was Brinny Forbes, DeAnthony Melton, TJ Warren, the Chief, Yusuf Nurkic, Chris Paul, Serge Ibaka, and Kyle Lowry, and that netted 329.5 points for a total salary of $47,500. What a terrible slate this was. The perfect lineup over on FanDuel was Chris Paul, Bryn Forbes, Jim Harden, CJ McCollum, TJ Warren, Gerald Green, Serge Ibaka, the Chief, and DeAndre Ayton for a total of 335.4, and that cost $59,800 dues. Just another quick shout out to the guys who have provided this fantastic shirt and jacket for me. The guys over at InStitchu, and if you use the code LOCKEDON50, they'll give you $50 off any order of $499 or more. A great custom jacket I've got here, custom shirt they made, all this customization they enabled me to. Oh, you can't say you can through the color of the lining underneath my collar, the pink insert on the sleeve jacket. Fantastic work over for the guys at InStitchu. So go check those guys out and save $50 off your order by using the code LOCKEDON50. Let's talk some DFS games now. Coming up for Wednesday, we've got a big slate of action heading our way. For 11 games on, we're going to be focusing on Draftkings in today's show. So let's look at the first game, the Milwaukee Bucks and the Indiana Pacers. There's no spread or total for this one because there's a couple of big injuries. Giannis Antetokounmpo missed the last game for the Bucks. He's likely back here. But on the other side of things, Vic Oladipo has been listed as questionable for the Indiana Pacers. I imagine if Oladipo is back, he'll be on some sort of minutes limit in this game. And that'll still give value to guys like Tyreek, to Darren Collison, to Corey Joseph, but they're not going to be, or even Bojan Bogdanovic, not at the same level that they have been over the past couple of games where they've been putting up really, really big numbers. Oladipo might come back and play 25, but that's still 25 minutes that has to come from, nearly all of Aaron Holiday's minutes will go, but 3 or 4 minutes off the top of those other guys, as well as touches, shot attempts, all that sort of stuff, will have impacts on those players, assuming Oladipo does actually go. At point guard, Eric Bledsoe's at 7,100. He had a nice 46-pointer without Giannis last game, but he's done well against the Pacers, 40-point average the last 3 times. I think he's relatively solid at that 7,100 mark, while Malcolm Brogdon at 5,800, really putting up the big numbers for category leagues. For DFS, he's not quite as good, although he's got a very safe floor, 25-point minimum over the past 5 games, and at 5,800, that's a pretty solid floor. Oladipo at 9,000, fade that pretty strongly, while Collison is now up to 6,700, and if Oladipo is playing, I'd fade Collison. If Oladipo is out, I think that we do have to have a look at him as an option. Is a pretty positive option, but that salary has been bumped up to take a little bit of the edge away. At the wing position, shooting guard, small forward, Chrissy Middleton's at 6,200. His production's been down, averaging under 27 points over the last 5. Hasn't really had a big game, but that's a nice salary reduction, $500 down from the last time for Middleton. And I think that he is worth a look, especially for tournaments. Tyreek would be a strong fade for me. And then you've got other shooting guard guys like Sterlo Brown, who played 31 minutes with Giannis out. I don't think he's getting to that level of playing time. Tone Snell and Bojan Bogdanovic, also some small forward shooting guard type players. 5,600 for Bojan, who has been crushing it, really. If Oladipo was out, I love that price for Bogdanovic. If Oladipo was in, I think there's still something there for Bojan if Vic plays at that sort of a low salary, but it's far from a guarantee. As for Antetokounmpo, 11,100, really like that one. A strong matchup for Giannis. He should be good for a pretty comfortable 50-point minimum, I would suggest, in this game. While Thad Young at 5,200 has also been strong. I think some of that is an Oladipo factor, but averaging 35 over the last 3 has been really, really good for Young, and the matchup's relatively positive, so he's not a terrible guy to have a look at despite a $400 price rise. For the big man, you've got Brook Lopez at 4,400. I like that. That's a strong floor for Lopez. His lowest score in his last 5 has been 24 points. Then you've got Domantas Sabonis and Miles Turner, who have been putting up big numbers. Turner's up to 7,200. His usage has been the same with Oladipo in or out, but one thing that has changed is his rebound rate goes from about 14 boards per 100 possessions down to about 11 with or without Oladipo. So that could be a reason that his rebounding numbers have been increased as of late, which has really helped his confidence and seems to help his shot blocking with that weird correlation between multi-block games and double-digit rebounds. 7,200 for Turner, Sabonis at 6,700. I'm not really feeling super confident on any of those guys. And Ersan Ilyasova, I think we can pretty comfortably leave him alone. On FanDuel, I like Giannis a lot at 12,200. I like Middleton also at 6,800. Sabonis becomes more appealing on FanDuel at 6,500 over there, while Oladipo at 9,000. Of course, we're fading that, but we are looking at Darren Collison pretty strongly at 65 if Oladipo is actually sidelined in this game. The next one we have a look at, the Brooklyn Nets and the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers are favored by 7, and the total is 221 points. There is centers against Brooklyn is one of the big tenets of this season, much like against the Knicks or against the Bulls or against the Suns. You can have big games there. Jimmy Butler is he's doubtful for the Sixers, so that means we're likely to get more usage flowing through Joel Embiid, plus he gets a real positive matchup, so that's working in his favour here in this game. With Butler likely to miss, Timothy John McConnell is a $3,500 guy. He dropped 32 points in 28 minutes last game. Absolutely happy to use him. I think he's a pretty strong cash option. While Ben Simmons at $8,900. Even with or without Butler, he's getting 40 plus a night most nights. And that's relatively strong at $8,900. Landry Shamet at $3,100 would also be an option, I believe, with Butler sidelined. He started the second half with Jim out last game. Only had 17 points. That's not great, but at $3,100, it does the job. While Spencer Dinwiddie and D'Angelo Russell at $6,000 and $7,500 respectively. I'd rather take Dinwiddie, save that $1,500. He's averaging 32 over the last 3 games, and still a relatively strong play there. The shooting guards, I like JJ Redick at 53 without Butler, relatively strong. While Furkan Korkmaz at 3,200. He had 32 points in that last game with Butler out. I think that's probably unrealistic for Furkan to get back to, but at 3,200, that's almost impossible to ignore. The Blue Swimmers at 4,200, and Alan Crabb actually has been really consistent, weirdly, over the last couple of games. 27-point average over his last 3. I'm not sure that I fully trust it, but it's a tournament option at least. Baby Neck Wilson Chandler at 38. He's giving you 20 plus a night, which at 3,800 actually gives you some results. So he could be used and able to squeeze in, say, an Embiid or Yanni or Anthony Davis or multiple of those guys into one lineup. Just getting that 20, 25 point production without Butler, it could work. I'd much prefer him to, say, the 3,600 that you'd have to spend on Damari Carroll. The big man Embiid at 10.5, absolutely love that. Rondé Hollis Jefferson at 54. Rondé's numbers have been a little bit improved lately. I'm not sure I really love him in this matchup. There are better ways to go about it. Jarrett Allen at 5,800. Allen had dipped. The production's jumped back up though, 34 average over the last 3. I just think there are better center options out there than him. Those better options are not Ed Davis or Amir Johnson. On FanDuel, Embiid is the one that I'm really targeting here. I think Rondé at 57. He provides some value on FanDuel, mainly just because of the lack of value in other areas. Redick at 55 is strong, and 43 for Tim McConnell. Tim McConnell, man, that just sounds so weird. I think he is worth looking at that sort of a salary over on FanDuel as well. The next game that we take a look at, we have got the Detroit Pistons and the Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets are 5.5 point favourites, and the total is 219.5. Luke Kennard, the Duck, could he go off again? Well, it's going to be a little bit harder. Reggie Bullock is doubtful. Ish Smith is out, and so is the little dog Glenn Robinson. But Stanley Johnson is likely to return to the lineup, as is Blake Griffin. So 2 guys who are going to take either minutes away from Kennard or touches away from Kennard in the case of Griffin. So there are a couple of things to pay attention to there. At point guard, Reggie Jackson's at 54. I think he's absolutely rock solid for cash without Ish Smith. He's getting you 26 or 27 a night, which is fine at that sort of a salary. While Kemba Walker at 8,600. The numbers haven't been the best for Kemba lately, averaging just 37 over the last 5. Of course, he can pretty clearly do better than that. I'm just not sure against a Detroit team that's been relatively good defending against point guards that Kemba, with that downswing in his shooting numbers, is the guy to go for. You got Langston Galloway, who was terrible last game. I'd fade him, while the Baby Shark... Bruce Brown, 3,300. I'm not sure if he'll remain starting. Probably a guy to fade. Let's talk any other point guards to talk about. Tone Parker, no. Let's talk shooting guards. Luke Kennard, the Duck, 3,500. He had 42.5 points last game. That's obviously really, really impressive from Kennard, but getting that level of production back is going to be tough. But the fact that he's only up to 3,500 does make him a strong GPP guy, while 5,900 for Jeremy Lamb is in the ballpark of the zone that he needs to be at. Other shooting guard, small forwards, Batum is at 4,700, has done very well against Detroit in the past, the 34 average the last 3 times, but his production is so sporadic. That price is appealing. I just don't think we should be looking too closely at him. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Marvin Williams, Stan Johnson, Miles Bridges, I don't really see much appeal in any of those guys at their current prices. The big man, I like Cody Zeller at 4,400. He's just giving you a rock solid 25 points a night at the moment, which is fine at that salary. While Drummond down at 8,700. The free throws are shit, but he's still getting 50 points a night over his last 3, and that's what I'm happy with, and another 50 points here would clearly smash that value. So I do like Drummo here, while Blakey Griffin's at 9,300, and when the games that Griffin's playing, he's getting you about 50 a night as well. Absolutely no problem considering him an option for the Detroit Pistons against these Charlotte Hornets. On FanDuel, I'm looking at Kennard at 41 and Drummond at 95 as probably the better options there. Kid Gilchrist at 39 maybe, but probably not in most cases, while 8,900 for Kemba does give him an element of value on FanDuel, far from being the best, same as the 54 for Cody Zeller, which I could see sneaking into cash lineups relatively regularly and being a useful guy to consider there. All right, let's take a look at the next game, which is the Boston Celtics and the Washington Wizards. The spread and total aren't currently available for this game. The Celtics had a ton of guys miss the last game, resting and so forth. We have Kyrie Irving listed as probable. We have Gordie Hayward listed as doubtful. And then Al Horford and Aaron Baines are both questionable. On the Washington side, Otto Porter is questionable, while John Wall, who missed last game, is probable. So quite a few injury scenarios for us to pay attention to here. As for Wall, he averages 52 the last 3 times against Boston, and he is now down at 8,400. That means I'm very interested in using John Wall here as more of an upside sort of a guy, probably not for cash, but he could very easily drop a 50 on the Celtics, while Kyrie, on the other hand, at 8,500. I think I'd rather take Wall in a tournament just for upside. Kyrie hasn't done well with Wall guarding him in the past, although point guards this season against the Wizards have seen somewhat of a boost. Marcus Smart at 4,500 or Thomas Satoransky at 44. I don't think any of them are worth looking at. While Terry Rozier is actually averaging 33 points over the last 3, but his salary is at 57. And with all these players likely returning to action, Rozier's just not going to have that same level of opportunity. Bradley Beal's at 8,000. He's just a consistent 40-plus point guy, which makes him a brilliant cash option. Oubre's at 49, and I'd only be looking at Oubre if Porter was sidelined. He dropped 39 last game, but he is quite hit or miss. You tend to move it more towards hit if Porter is sidelined. While Jaylen Brown at 5,400 has really been putting up big numbers in opportune circumstances. Those same opportune circumstances may not be here, although Gordon Hayward is likely to miss, meaning something could be going right for Jaylen once more. At small forward, Otto Porter's at 5,800. I don't have the trust in him, given we don't know if he's going to play at this point. Jason Tatum at 68 is a little bit too highly priced, while 5,900 for Marcus Morris. On the surface, looks good. I'm not totally sold on Marcus at that sort of a price. Last game was relatively fluky in terms of opportunity and shooting. Jeff Green is also someone to look at.
My name is Jeff.
If Otto Porter misses, he played a lot of minutes last game, only had 17 points, but at 3,600, if Otto happens to be sidelined, there is something there for Jeffy. At centre and power forward, Markieff Morris, 5,300. The numbers have dipped a little bit. A relatively solid floor, 23-point average over the last 5. 23-point minimum over the last 5. Look, I think he's okay. Celtics do really restrict opposition big men, though, so that's a tick against him. Al Horford at 6,500 with the knee tendonitis. Let's stay far away from that. Bainesy, Tom Bryant. I don't really see much to get excited about with any of those big men in this matchup. Over on FanDuel, again, not a lot that I like. The 8,900 and 85 for Wall and Kyrie, respectively, are both marginally appealing, but far from must-roster guys. And then the other injury unknowns make it difficult. The 8,700 for Brad Beal's not a bad floor type of a play, especially for cash scenarios, while Oubre comes in at 5,500, which would be a great one to activate if we knew that Otto Porter was out, which, of course, at this point, we don't. All right, let's go to the next game. The New York Knicks and the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Knicks, amazingly, are favored by 2 points. The total is 215 in this game. Tristan Thompson is out with that foot issue. He's going to be out for the 3 to 4 weeks, as we mentioned earlier. So there's going to be a change in the lineup. I would assume Larry Nance gets the start at center, but Larry Drew could play any sort of weird bullshit. Put Channing Frye in there, could put Ante Zizic in there. Who knows what he's going to do with the rotation, but you'd have to think that we get pretty decent minutes from Nance majority of the time. We haven't seen David Nwaba ruled out yet either, who could be, he's been out for a while with this issue, so he could be returning, putting another little wrinkle into the big man rotation. He'd been playing power forward before his injury. At point guard, Colin, the Padawan Sexton, 5,100. I know I shit on his fantasy game all the time, but for DFS, he's perfectly fine, and I like him at 5,100. I think he's a really strong play. Alec Burks at 48, started the last couple of games, really struggled last time out, just 11 points in that game for Burksy. I still think that he's worth looking at. While Emmanuel Mudiay, Fizdale was back at it again. 19 minutes for Mudiay, 15 points at 5,500. It is a really good matchup for him, but what's Fizdale going to do? I know Trey Burke's out, but is he going to go back to Frank Ntilikina, who he'd apparently written off as the worst basketball player of all time? And then he saw him score 18 points in a quarter, and we don't know what that means for this team moving forward. So Mudiay is a relatively risky pick because of his coach. 4,700 for Jordan Clarkson. Not someone that I'm super into here. Well, Ntilikina, he had 18 points in a quarter, but 20 DraftKings points for the entire game. So I think we can pretty comfortably leave him alone. The wing players, Timmy Hardaway's at 6,800. I'm all for him. He averages 51 points against the Cavs the last 3 times. That is an astonishing number for Hardaway. I'm all about using him here. Damo Dotson at 41 has dropped off. Not a shocker there at all. An unsustainable hot streak. Couldn't keep up. While Rocket Rodney Hood at 43, you should only be considering him for tournaments. Chetty Osman's at 43. Same with him. It is a good matchup for Chetty, but the inconsistency, the poor shooting does leave him really just restricted to tournament options. That's it. Mario Hezonja, cool. He had 1 point last game and played 5 minutes, so who knows what sort of nonsense is going to go on there. But that's because the Fort Kevin Knox played 41 minutes. He scored 50 points in that one, Knoxy, at 4,500. It's pretty tough to leave him out of your lineup as well. But again, Fizdale. Anything can happen. Jerome Blossom game. With Thompson injured, Nance should slide to the 5. That could mean that Blossom game gets a lot more minutes. Now, he played 26 minutes last game and had 32 points and still comes in at 3,400. No reason he can't get 20 plus points in this game again, so he absolutely needs to be somewhere on your radar. At center, Nance is at 5,700. 30-point average the last 3 games. I think one of the best lock plays of the day, in my opinion. While Mitchell Robinson is always a GPP guy because he can go off for those blocks. While Noah Vonleh, the salary at 5,600 takes a lot of the appeal away from Vonleh. He's fine in that 26 to 27 point mark. I'm just not sure if his upside's high enough. Or Enes Kanter, literally who knows. He played 18 minutes last game, 6,500 for Enes. That is always a relatively strong fade, as the majority of players on this Knicks team are. On FanDuel, Nance, Hardaway, Sexton, I like all of those. Robinson, as I mentioned, is a nice GPP sort of a guy. The 4,900 for the Fort Kevin Knox is worth a look, although it's getting expensive, and he's been shit for nearly every game apart from last game. But there's some GPP appeal there for Kevin Knox over on FanDuel. Let's go on to the next game now. We are looking at the Memphis Grizzlies. They are hosting the Portland Trail Blazers. The Blazers on a back-to-back. The Grizzlies are favored by 3. The total is 205.5. Will JB Bickerstaff play Jaren Jackson, or will he go to the old trusty JaMychal Green? I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Mike Conley thankfully didn't have any Achilles issues, but he is dealing with some hamstring problems. He is listed as questionable in this game, so we'll see what happens with that one. At point guard, Conley is at 7,700, so I'd be all about that if he is able to play. Of course, that's just a GPP situation at this point, while Kyle Anderson, I love that he's at 4,200 on DraftKings. It's silly. It's too low. He's averaging 27 over the last 5 and 30 over the last 3. It's too low. Shelvin Mack would be the guy we look at if Conley is out. He is at 3,500. He's got 27, 28 point upside, I believe, if Mick happens to be sidelined. So we're all about Mack there. While Lillard at 9,200, a really strong price for Damo. Played well today against the Rockets. Yeah, it's a pretty cash locky type of a guy. While CJ McCollum has done very well in the past against Memphis. 45 average the last 3 times. His numbers haven't really been anywhere near that for the majority of this season. But at 6,900, giggity, I think you can have some level of interest in McCollum. For the shooting guards, Garrett Temple's at 34. No, thank you very much. Evan Turner, Nick Stauskas. No. At small forward, JaMychal Green's a small forward for whatever reason. 4,600 for him. Look, he's putting up numbers. 30 points a game over the last 5. Most of that's coinciding with when Jackson doesn't play. At 4,600, though, I actually don't hate using him even in a situation where Jackson could play big minutes, which he should, but that price is low enough to consider JaMychal. The Chief, Al Farouk Aminu,
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
He's 4,600. You know a shit one's coming because he's put up a pretty good string of big games, 31 average over the last 5. I'm still not ready to lock him in as a cash guy. He could get really dominated by Jackson in this one, while Mo Harkless at 3,700 is not exciting me. The big man, Marc Gasol, he has been putrid, averaging 25 over his last 5. 7,600 is a really nice drop down in price, so that would give him GPP appeal. Jaren Jackson Jr. is at 5,700, also been disappointing, averaging under 20 the last 5, but I like him a lot for tournaments. While Yusuf Nurkic at 7,000, he is on a massive roll. I love Nurkic here. I think this is great cash value for him. Just giving you almost 40 a night most nights at the moment. So I'm big into Yusuf Nurkic in this matchup over on DraftKings. Let's have a look at it over on FanDuel. I think Conley, Gasol, and Triple J are all good tournament plays, strong tournament plays. I like Kyle Anderson for cash. And then you've got Jermichael Green at 54 and Shelvin Mack as more tournament-y type guys as well. Of course, Mack would really push into the cash realm if Conley happens to be sidelined. But at this point, we don't know that. The next game is the Oklahoma City Thunder and the New Orleans Pelicans. You've got the Thunder favored by 2 in the total, 232. Nick Mirotic is out for the New Orleans Pelicans, so that's going to open up some value on the side of the Pelicans. Let's go to the point guards first. Timmy Frazier's at 4,100. That's a very, very cheap price, and I absolutely love that. Cash and tournaments. Well, Drew Holiday at 7,900. Yeah, he wasn't good last game, but that's too low for Drew. Both of those guys need cash viability. 10,900 for Russell Westbrook is also a pretty strong price. So there's a lot of options I like in this game. On the wings, you got Schroeder at 5,300, who was strong last game, and that feels like it's a very cheap price as well. Etuan Moore is questionable with his leg injury, but I wouldn't be rostering him regardless. Same with Terry Ferguson, MC Hamadou Diallo, or Alex Abrines. Solly Hill or Paul George? Well, Paul George, obviously, $9,000 for Georgie. He is averaging 49 over the last 5. He's putting up big numbers. It's a very, very positive matchup for Paul George. Absolutely no issues with rostering him in this one. And then the big man, it's where it's really at. Minimum salary check Diallo at $3,000. He had 17 points in 19 minutes. Give me 17 points here and you've already brought your value back. So I'm in on him. Julius Randle at 74, I am in on as well. Jeremy Grant, there are better options than Jeremy. While Tone Davis at 11,200 dropped just a casual 61 last game, and that was against the Celtics. No reason why he can't do something similar against the Thunder. Steven Adams is a problem. That he does limit Davis in general, so that's something just to bear in mind. While Adams at 6,400 is, I don't think that's all that high of an upside play when you're taking on Tony Davis. On FanDuel, Diallo, Randall, Holiday, Westbrook, I think all of those guys have cash value, as does George and Dennis Schroeder. So this is one of the better games, I believe, in terms of finding value across both FanDuel and on DraftKings. The next game we look at the Atlanta Hawks and the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavs are favored by 9. The total is 223. Can they keep their insane home streak going? And the other thing they've got to look forward to is Dirk Nowitzki has been upgraded to questionable. This is the first time he's been questionable all season without ankle injury. They've got Maxi Kleber as well, who's probable for this game, while Dennis Smith Jr. has been ruled out. Now, if Dirk does return, he's going to be limited minutes. He's not going to be a DFS option pretty clearly. At point guard, Trae Young is down to $6,000. He has been really quiet at the moment, but I think this is a great opportunity for Young. He had 30 points the first time out against Dallas. Could very easily do that again. I'm in on Trae Young here. The burner, Jalen Brunson's at 3,800. With Smith out, he's put up huge numbers, 27 average over the last 3. No worries with utilising him as well. Well, JJ Barea has lost that playing time to Brunson, which has been very, very interesting. Jeremy Lin is also out for the Hawks. Kevin Huerter at 3,600. Love the value in that. Really strong for cash. Tournament upside, but really strong for cash. While Wes Matthews is more tournament at 4,500. Kent Bazemore also should start with the artist formerly known as Torian Prince sideline to 5,500 for Kent. While Luka Doncic is at 7,300. I like Doncic, but I do think there are better options available on this slate than using Doncic on DraftKings. On other sites, it's a little bit of a different story. You also have to consider DeAndre Bembry, who is averaging 23 the last 5. Fueled by a 38-point game last performance. I'm not totally in on, actually I'm not in on him at all for cash, but there is some tournament upside there for Bembry. The pencil Harrison Barnes at 6,200, that's too high in my opinion, and let's go on to the big man, The Undertaker, Dwayne Dedman. Yes. He is at 4,400 because he is averaging 30 points over the last 3. Now, that's fueled by a really high steal rate, but I do like this situation for Dedmon. DeAndre Jordan at 7,300. He's done really well against the Hawks. I think that I'd end up fading him in this matchup, while the Baptist John Collins at 7,800 just continuing to crush it, and I've got no reason to think that he won't be a useful option in this game. On FanDuel, it's Doncic and Young as probably my 2 better plays. I think the pencil at 5,800 is a lot more appealing on FanDuel than what he is on DraftKings. And Wesley Matthews at 5,500 also has some appeal. I like Huerta. I like Bazemore on FanDuel as well. Let's go on to the next game. We have got the Miami Heat and the Utah Jazz. We got most guys are available for this game from the everyone's available from the Jazz and from the Heat except Hassan Whiteside, who has been ruled out yet again. A lot of conspiracy theories about Whiteside. He's definitely getting traded. They've made an agreement to trade him. How can anyone miss 4 games due to the birth of their child? Yet they're forgetting that Dwayne Wade missed 11 days and 7 games for this very same team, this very same season for the same issue. I'm not saying that there's nothing going on with Whiteside. He's a real dick. Clearly, he's got issues and the team has issues with him. But he is owed $54 million over the next 2 seasons. Trying to find a trade, how many assets are they going to have to give up just to get rid of his contract? What is the point of them giving up assets on a team that's struggling just to get him off the books? Yeah, I don't buy it. We'll see. I could be wrong. I don't buy it. Ravishing Rick Rubio. Of course, by Rudio, I meant Rubio. He's at 5,900. His numbers have been a lot more better. Well, I can't even speak anymore. His numbers have been a lot better recently. I'm not sure he's really worth the 5,900, while the Donovan Mitchell is down to 6,600. How far the mighty have fallen. His numbers have been pedestrian at 28-point average over the last 5, but I do think he's clearly got that 40-point upside, so I like him for tournaments, and I don't hate him here for cash at all. The Iron Shoulder Goran Dragic at 5,700, that's a strong fade for me, while Dwayne Wade at 5,900, I think it's too high for Wado. He's putting up good numbers, but 5,900 just feels like it's a bit too much. Shooting guards, Joshy Richardson's at 6,100, just cannot hit shots at all at the moment. He's only giving you 24 points a night, which is not great at 6,100, but if the shot goes in, then 35s are pretty comfortably in his wheelhouse. So that would make him tournament type of guy. Jingle and Joe and Scooter Magruder. Ingles also struggling at 5,700, more of a tournament type of guy. For the wings and the power forwards, small forwards, power forwards, Jim Johnson, no, but the guy we want to talk about is Justice Winslow, who's averaging 44 the last 3 games. He's at 4,900. I just don't know where this sort of shooting is coming from Winslow, but he's pretty bloody hard to fade. But in tournaments, I think his roster percentage may be too high, and that might mean going in another direction is probably a better option. Jay Crowder at 45. I think Crowder might get the start in this game against the Miami Heat, so bear that in mind. It generally doesn't change his production though. While Derek Jones Jr. dropped 37 last game in one of the weirdest stat lines you'll see, I think the likelihood of that repeating itself is not high. Rudy Gobert, 7,400. I like the fact that salary keeps coming down, and it's really in a spot now where we could use it. So I think we can look at Gobert as a pretty strong option. Favors at 5,000 doesn't appeal to me. Kelly Olynyk at 5,000 does, and Bam Adebayo, of course, at 6,100.
Bam! 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 Bam!
He's averaged 39 the last 3 games in 30 minutes. So, in a real positive matchup as well for him, a guy that can stretch it out and be a playmaking big. That can trouble Gobert and the Jazz. And at that 6,100 price tag, it's pretty tough not to consider Adebayo a strong rostered player. On FanDuel, similar sort of stuff. Adebayo, Rubio at 6,500 looks marginally appealing. Ingles for GPP, same with Richardson at 6,800. Let's go on to the next game. We're looking at the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Sacramento Kings. The Wolves are favored by 2. The total is 228 points. Covington doesn't quite look right. He's been listed as probable in this game with that knee issue that kept him out across the weekend. So there is, I guess, an element of concern that his minutes won't be quite where they are, and that means Derrick Rose at 5,800 should see an additional workload. So I'm in on Rose in this game. Jeff Teague at 6,100.
My name is Jeff.
Hasn't quite been doing it. The scoring hasn't been there for Teague. Probably end up leaving that alone. While De'Aaron Fox is on fire, averaging 41 over the last 5 at 7,300. It's good to use him, but the Timberwolves are one of the toughest teams for point guards to go up against. The shooting from Fox has been out of control, and at some point that's going to drop off. So I'd probably restrict him more to tournaments than anything else. Iman Shumpert had a big game last time. I'm not really relying upon that, while Budrick Hield at 5,800, just giving you around 30 every night. A very strong floor for Bud. I'm not sure his ceiling's high, but I'm pretty confident in what his floor brings. Andy Wiggins at 63 is, I guess, a worse version of Buddy Hield at this point, just in terms of you feel okay with his floor. You just don't feel like he's ever going to explode and do anything great. While Bogdan Bogdanovic, I love him at 5,700. His lowest score in his last 5 has been 27 points. The big man scenario, Marvin Bagley is at 4,800. Has not been putting up big games really since he returned, but I'm happy for this to turn around here. I think it will turn around, so I'm big on him for this one. Cauley Stein at 5,900. I think there are better ways to spend your big man money. Taj and Saric are fades, while Karl Anthony Towns at 10,000. He averages 61 the last 3 times against Sacramento. 51 points his last 5 games in general. I'm all in on Towns in this one. Over on FanDuel, Rose and Wiggins really look appealing to me. I think Towns at 97 is looking really, really strong too. Bagley, not as good on FanDuel. 6,200 is probably just a little bit too high. Let's go on to the last game of the day, the Toronto Raptors and the Golden State Warriors. The Raptors on a back-to-back. At the time of recording this, I don't know if Kawhi Leonard is going to play. He missed Tuesday's action, and his status for this game is still up in the air. Andre Iguodala missed last game as well. I imagine he will be back in the rotation, though, for the Golden State Warriors. Kyle Lowry at 7,200 has got a very good record against the Warriors. His last couple of weeks haven't been great, but he averages 47 the last 3 times against Golden State, so I'd be happy to go with him as a tournament player. Freddie Van Vliet at 4,300. Well, he started Tuesday's game without Leonard, so I think that he's worth looking at that sort of a salary. And then you've got Steph Curry, who is unbelievable. He's on fire at the moment. 9,800 for Steph. No worries with utilising him. Klay Thompson at 6,500. He's been okay. I wouldn't say his upside is necessarily high, but a decent enough floor cash sort of a guy. Dan Green, not really doing it for me. The fun guy, Kawhi Leonard.
I'm a fun guy.
I think if Leonard plays at 9,400, he is absolutely worth looking at, while Durant at 9,600. The numbers for him have been reduced, 42 average over the last 3, not worth the 9,600. Give me the 9,800 for Steph Curry every day of the week. 3,800 for Eunice Jerebko. If Iguodala is sidelined, I would use Jerebko at that sort of a salary, but that's the only scenario. For the big men, Kevon Looney, 3,700 with Draymond back. I think that's really just for tournaments. Jonas Valanciunas at 46. Not really feeling too much there with him. Ibaka at 6,000. Big men against the Warriors, they can struggle, but Ibaka can work a little bit differently, while Draymond at 66. I think there's some GPP value there in Draymond, and Siakam at 6,100. More a cash player than a GPP guy. Over on FanDuel, no one super stands out. More that Kyle Lowry GPP play at 46 FanDuel point average the last 3 times out, and Van Vliet if Kawhi happens to be out. I love Curry at 10-4 over there as well. One of the better high price plays over on FanDuel. All right, let's go through the studs and the values. On DraftKings, I like Embiid as my stud at 10,500 with Butler doubtful, and my value play, the minimum salary of Check Diallo, $3,000. On FanDuel, my stud is Embiid at 10.7, and my value is Larry Nance at 58. On Yahoo, my stud is Julius Randle at 37, and my value is The Undertaker, Dwayne Dedman. And on DraftStars, my stud is Embiid at 20,040, while my value play is Check Diallo, a minimum salary player with Nick Mirotic out. Make sure you guys are checking out InStitchu and using that code LOCKEDON50 to get yourself a nice suit or shirt over there. Follow me on Twitter at redrock_bball and the Locked On Network at Locked On NBA Net. Subscribe on this to this podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spotify, so you don't miss those bonus episodes that I'm putting out each day, going through top 20 players, waiver wire ads, buy low, sell high type guys. Make sure you're subscribing so you never miss those shows. And on YouTube, hit the thumbs up, hit subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and leave a comment. Just wrong hand, right down below, right down there. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Steph Curry.